Good morning everyone. So first tell me, can you see the board properly? And can you hear me properly? Okay. So once again good morning everyone and welcome back to your biology theory class. And as you know that in the previous classes I have started to discuss the chapter human reproduction, and in the previous class I have completed up to the spermatogenesis. I have started the part gametogenesis and particularly I have discussed the spermatogenesis. Today I will start with the another important part, that is the structure of the sperm, and after that I will discuss the oogenesis process. Okay, and then we will see what are the differences we can find between the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So now you can just a minute. So you can see that I have drawn a diagram on the board which is showing the structure of the human sperm. Okay, so if you see the structure of the sperm under the microscope, you will find some parts. What are they? At the top we will find head, after that neck, after that middle piece, and at the end we will get the tail part. Okay, so you can see this is the diagram of the human sperm. So this portion, this top post or anterior portion is considered as head. After that a small part notch-like structure is present which is the neck, and after that this elongated part is middle piece, and this part at the end you will find the tail part. So what are the different parts present inside those portions? Inside the head you can find that there is a haploid nucleus. Okay, this elongated nucleus is haploid in nature, and at the top of the nucleus there is a part, or the anterior portion of the nucleus you will find a cap like structure which is considered as acrosome. At the top of the nucleus there is a cap like structure which is considered as acrosome, and inside the acrosome some enzymes are present. In generally these enzymes are called as sperm lysins. What they are called? Sperm lysins. So what type of enzymes particularly we will get in the sperm lysins? They are hyaluronidase, corona penetrating enzyme. Okay, these type of enzymes are present which are helping to dissolve the outer layers of the egg or ovum. So now if you see the structure of a mature egg or ovum, then at the outer portion you will get the zona pellucida layer, and beside the zona pellucida layer we will get a corona radiata cells or corona radiata layer. Okay, so these layers need to be dissolved if the sperm want to enter into the egg. Okay, so these are made up of hard substances. So these type of enzymes are present inside the acrosome which will help to dissolve the corona radiata layer, zona pellucida layer, and after that the sperm head can easily enter its nucleus inside the ovum or egg. Clear? So these enzymes are in generally considered as sperm lysins. I am repeating that at the head portion of the sperm you will find a nucleus, and at the anterior portion of the nucleus a cap like structure is present which is called as acrosome. Inside the acrosome sperm lysins, some enzymes are present which are called as sperm lysins, and the name of the particular enzymes are such as hyaluronidase, corona penetrating enzyme, zona lysins. Okay, these will help to dissolve the different layers of the egg or ovum. That is why this type of enzymes are present inside the acrosomal part. Actually this acrosome is the modified Golgi apparatus. Okay, now these two structure is covered, that means the sperm, the inner portion of the sperm is covered by a outer structure which is called as plasma membrane. Okay, so the sperm is covered by the plasma membrane. Now come to the next part, a small notch like part, that is a very small part which is called as neck. Inside the neck we will get two centrioles, one is distal centriole and another one is proximal centriole. Okay, now come to the next part. This elongated part is considered as middle piece as it is present in the middle. Okay, and inside the middle piece you can find some spiral shaped mitochondria are present. Inside the middle piece some spiral shaped mitochondria are present. So what is the function of those spiral shaped mitochondria? Those spiral shaped mitochondria will provide the energy for the movement of the tail or movement of the sperm. Okay, now come to the proximal centriole and distal centriole. Now come to the last part, that is the tail part. Inside the tail you will find a filament which is called as axial filament. This filament is considered as axial filament. Okay, and with the help of this tail the sperm will move very easily. This type of movement can be found inside the sperm, and this type of movement is called as undulating movement. Okay, so I am repeating all the parts once again. If you see a human sperm under the microscope, first you will get four parts: head, neck, middle piece, tail. Inside the head you will get nucleus, a haploid elongated nucleus, and at the top of the nucleus you will get a modified Golgi apparatus, that is called as acrosome, which is packed with the different sperm lysins or different enzymes. Now come to the neck part. There you will get the centrioles, and after that the mitochondria are present inside the middle piece. These are spiral in shape and they are providing the energy for the movement of the sperm or the tail part of the sperm. Okay, and at the end part is tail, their axial filament is present. So with the help of that structure, the sperm can move very easily. Okay, so this is all about the different structure or different parts of the sperm. Now if you see in a single ejaculation, after the coitus, in a single ejaculation we will get that about 200 to 300 million sperms will be ejaculated during a single coitus. Okay, but in between them about 40% of the not only 40%, about the 60% must have the normal shape, normal size, normal motility, and for rest of the part, the rest 40% will show vigorous motility. Okay, now as you can remember, the sperms can be produced by the process of spermatogenesis inside the seminiferous tubule of the testes. So the sperms will be released from the seminiferous tubule and it will be passed to the different accessory ducts. So in case of testes, some ducts are present inside the testes and some ducts are present outside the testes, right? So first these sperms will be produced and will reach to the next part, that is retitestes, vasa efferentia, epididymis, vas deferens or vasa differentia. So now the sperms after releasing from the seminiferous tubules, the secretion of the epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle along with the plasma, seminal plasma So after releasing the sperm from the seminal vesicle, the secretion of the epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle, prostate gland, they will help in the providing the motility and maturation of the sperm. Their secretion is required for the motility and maturation of the sperm. Okay, because in the seminiferous tubule, when sperms will be produced, they will not be in the total matured form. So in the duct part, they will be matured by the secretion of those axillary ducts and glands. Okay, now we have used a term that is semen. So what is semen and what is the need of this? That the seminal plasma along with the sperms constitute the semen. As you can remember that the what is considered as seminal plasma, that means the secretion of the different axillary glands like seminal vesicle, prostate gland, bulbourethral gland or Cowper's gland. Their secretions are considered as seminal plasma. Their secretions are considered as seminal plasma. The seminal plasma with the sperm will be considered as semen. Okay. So, and the function of these male accessory ducts and glands are maintained by the testicular hormones, particularly androgens. Okay. So, this is all about the different parts of a human sperm and seminal plasma, their composition. Their composition of the seminal plasma already I have discussed, that fructose, calcium and some other parts which are making it the semen, the alkaline. These parts are present which I have discussed earlier, right? So now with that I am completing the human male part. Now next important part is the oogenesis part, that means the production of the female gamete, that is egg or ovum. There up to the portion we will complete, that will be okay. So whatever we are teaching to you, please follow the class, you will get to know everything. So now come to the next part, that is the oogenesis. So what is oogenesis? You know the meaning of the spermatogenesis. Now if I say what is oogenesis? So oogenesis is the process of the formation of the female gamete, that is egg or ovum. Egg or ovum will be formed by the process of the oogenesis. Now this oogenesis process is quite different with the spermatogenesis process. How? Because why and how I will discuss one by one. Okay, so first one is that you know what is oogenesis, and you can remember when I have discussed the spermatogenesis process, there was a male germ cell which are called as spermatogonium or spermatogonia. So in case of female gamete mother cell is considered as oogonia or oogonium. Okay, so first difference with the spermatogenesis is that spermatogenesis process has been started at the age of the puberty, but oogenesis process will start at the embryonic developmental stage. So first difference is that spermatogenesis has been started at the age of the puberty, but oogenesis will start at the embryonic stage of the development. Okay, embryonic developmental stage, when a couple of million gamete mother cells or oogonia will be formed in each fetal ovary. A couple of gamete mother cell or oogonia will be formed inside the each fetal ovary, and no more oogonia will be formed and added after the birth. Okay, the number of the oogonia that will be formed will be in the embryonic development, but no more oogonia or gamete mother cell will be formed after the birth, and the number will not be added. Okay, so this is the main two differences between the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Now here I have shown a structure of a sectional view of a human ovary. There you will get to know the different parts that can be formed during this oogenesis process. Okay, now these cells will start the division, and that means the oogonia or gamete mother cell will start the division, and they will start the meiosis 1 and they will enter the prophase 1 stage and they will get arrested. Okay, so this is another important part, that this cell start division and enter the diplotin stage of prophase 1. You can remember that in case of prophase 1 there are some sub stages. So particularly in the diplotin stage of the prophase 1 of the meiosis 1, it will get temporarily arrested, and at this stage it will be called as primary oocyte. So oogonia, first we have got the oogonia. So it will start the division and it will form the primary oocyte. Okay, and this primary oocyte, their division will start, but it will get arrested in the diplotin stage of the prophase 1 of meiosis 1. Okay, now this primary oocyte will get surrounded. This primary oocyte will get surrounded by the granulosa cell, and then they will form a structure that is primary follicle. So if this is the primary oocyte, then it is surrounded by some granulosa cells or follicular cells, and these can be considered as primary follicles. Okay, now this large number of primary follicles will get degenerated. The large number of primary follicles will degenerate during the phase from birth to the puberty. The phase between the time between the birth and the puberty, the huge number of primary follicles will get degenerated, and this is considered as follicular atresia. What is it is called as follicular atresia. This degeneration is called as follicular atresia, and thereafter at puberty only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles will be left in each ovary. So after this degeneration or follicular atresia, near about 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicle will left inside the each ovary. Okay, and after that these primary follicles will get surrounded by the more layers of the granulosa cells, and another thicker layer will be formed, and then it will be considered as secondary follicle. So now if it consists of more layers of follicular cells, then it will be considered as secondary follicle. Okay, now very soon the secondary follicle will be transformed into another structure, and inside the tertiary follicle we will find the fluid filled cavity which is called as antrum, and this structure is considered as tertiary follicle. Okay, so first it was primary follicle, after that secondary follicle, and after that we have got another structure which is called as, and which is characterized by a fluid filled cavity. This is a fluid filled cavity which is called as antrum. Now this outer portion of this say tertiary follicle, some thicker layer will be formed, and it will be converted into two parts. The outer portion will be considered as theca externa, and the inner layer will be considered as theca interna. Okay, now at this stage the primary oocyte, so if you see this portion, oocyte part, so here we are talking about two parts, the development of that oogonia to primary oocyte and the outer portion, that is the different follicles. So you have to remember that inside the tertiary follicle we are having that primary oocyte stage, right? So this primary oocyte stage, then inside the tertiary follicle will grow in size, and it will complete its first meiotic division. So you can remember that it was in the arrested stage in the prophase 1, but after reaching the tertiary follicle they will increase their size, and they will be released from that arrested stage, and they will complete the first meiotic division. Okay, they will complete the first meiotic division. So after completing this, the primary oocyte within the after the division, it will result in the formation of secondary oocyte and the polar body. Okay, so from the primary oocyte what we will get? We will get a secondary oocyte, and another one we will get, that is polar body. Okay, so the size of the secondary oocyte will be larger. That means that one which will have the abundant amount of cytoplasm, that will be considered as secondary oocyte, which is bulky in nature, and the small with small size with small amount of cytoplasm, that is called as polar body, which will be degenerated. That one is called as first polar body. Okay, so now we have got the secondary oocyte and the tiny first polar body. Now you have to know that this tertiary follicle will converted into a mature structure, that is called as Graafian follicle. So I have drawn a rough diagram, you can see. So this is the Graafian follicle, and this Graafian follicle, inside that Graafian follicle you will get some parts, I will tell you. And another part, the secondary oocyte forms a new membrane around this. The secondary oocyte will form a new membrane which will called as zona pellucida, Okay, now let's see. This is the enlarged view of the Graafian follicle. Here you will be able to find the different parts of the Graafian follicle. So first, the theca layer, the outer theca layer, that is the theca externa, then inner theca layer, that is theca interna, then these cells are granulosa cells, and this fluid filled cavity is called as antrum, and this cavity is not filled with air, this is filled with a liquid, and this is called as liquor folliculi. So this is the fluid filled portion is considered as, the cavity is called as antrum, that but it is filled with a fluid, then it is called as liquor folliculi. Okay, and you can see that some granulosa cells, the secondary oocyte is attached with a one portion. This portion, this is called as cumulus oophorus. These cells are called as cumulus oophorus, and around the secondary oocyte, again the some cells which is made of granulosa cells are called as corona radiata. These cells are called as corona radiata, and as I have told you earlier that outside of the egg you will get the another layer, that is the zona pellucida. So this is the secondary oocyte, outer portion of the secondary. First we will get the zona pellucida layer, and beside that we will get another layer made up of granulosa cells which are called as corona radiata, and this portion where they are attached with this portion is called as cumulus oophorus. So this is the main parts or the different parts of a mature Graafian follicle. Now what will happen after the maturation of the Graafian follicle? It will be ruptured on the 14th day of the menstrual cycle in human female, and the secondary oocyte or the ovum will be released. Okay, and the rest of the part of the Graafian follicle will be converted into corpus luteum, and then it will be converted into corpus albicans, and then it will be degenerated and reabsorbed. Okay, so this is the total process of the different follicular and the inside the follicular stages development of the egg or ovum. Okay, now there is another thing. We have seen that it was in the arrested stage and then it has been released, but again they have completed the first meiosis. They didn't complete the second meiosis, because inside the secondary oocyte they will get arrested in the metaphase stage of the meiosis 2. Okay, so when it will be released, when the sperm will enter, then the arrested stage will be released. So when it is in the arrested stage, in case of metaphase, some promoting factor, metaphase promoting factor was acting there, but when the sperm will enter, then it will be removed. Then anaphase promoting factor will come and the anaphase will start, and the rest of the part of the meiosis will take place, and the total completion of the meiosis type of cell division will take place. Okay, so This is all about the, and again think, so what will happen, the secondary oocyte will be will divide into two. Again it will form this structure ova, and another small part like the previous one, that will be called as second polar body. Okay, and like this we will get the mature ovum. So this is all about the different developmental stages which is occurring inside the ovary, and different follicular phases, the different cell, and the development of the egg or ovum. So this is the main process of the spermatogenesis, and you can see that there are many differences are present in between the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Oogenesis is having some other steps, but spermatogenesis was quite easy, right? So in my next class I will discuss about the menstrual cycle, and I will show you the differences between the spermatogenesis and oogenesis with a diagram. Okay, so for today that's it. If you are having any queries, you can ask me. Have you understood, everyone? Okay, so thank you and bye bye everyone, and those who are present please write down your names. Those who are present please write down your names, and thank you and bye bye everyone.